Bonjour, je suis Norman Lee, ici le voyage d'espace JNSQ, and welcome to part 25, where we're getting into the orbit of Eeloo, the fourth dwarf planet of the system, about 1,200 kilometers across, a surface gravity pretty close to the stock moon, and an atmosphere that's pretty tall but really thin, plus 2 satellites, Celeste and Tam, the smallest object in the system. One day is 8 hours, it's another really fast spinner, and the orbit period is almost 45 Kerbal years and an inclination that is just like stock moho. Delta V to get out here is almost 4 kilometers per second just to fly by. It could be as much as 3 kilometers per second to capture because of that inclination. Ascending can take about 1 kilometer per second, but you can land on drag if you are careful and design your craft well. Getting out here, this is the pinnacle accomplishment for stock players. It's a superb challenge of your mission planning skills. It has really easy landing and ascent due to that atmosphere. Plus there's added moons for more science. The problem getting out here is it takes over 10 years to get out here. Parachutes don't work because the atmosphere is way too thin. There's only 5 biomes, and that eccentric orbit and wild inclination makes it as tough to approach as stock moho. When we last left our heroes Valentina, Bob and Doug Kerman, they were in orbit above Hammock and they were getting ready to warp out to Eeloo. We still have stupid amounts of Delta V on this craft, so even if we just went straight out to Eeloo, we should be able to close orbit out there pretty swiftly. First thing we're going to do is get into the safety range of the warp drive, and we're going to get out of low space. That way we can start warping out there. This is just going to be a setup mission. We're just going to get out to Eeloo, drop off our relay satellites, look around for anomalies, and get ready for our next destination, which will be the moon of Celeste. Unfortunately, my landing craft design did not lend its well to retrieving that heat shield and reattaching it. So unfortunately, all I can do is get out to Celeste and Tam and then finalize our mission on Eeloo. It'll be much like what I'll have to do at Nara when the time comes. When I get out here, first I warp up a little bit, make sure we hit that ascending node. I'm going to match orbits with Celeste so that when we get out to Celeste, we should be doing okay. Then we'll close orbit here, a good 3 kilometers per second. That's about the speed difference between Hammock and Eeloo right now. Not too bad at all. Pretty easy for the Orion Pulse drive. And then we warp straight in. Celeste does make my approach a little more difficult. I had to pause and then recenter on Eeloo itself. Come on, there we go. Okay, so we'll fix that, and when I got out here I figured, hey, let's go into a polar orbit. We're gonna scan for anomalies anyway. We'll drop off our relay sats, we'll leave them in a polar orbit as well. I chose a 6-day orbit period for these guys, just arbitrarily, didn't really matter. As long as they could maintain signal between here and Kerbin, that was good enough. And there we go. The first one is deployed. The second one I'm going to set to an orbit period of much shorter. I could only do 4 days, but I was able to fix that up at Eeloo Periapsis, not a problem. And there we go, our first close-up look of the surface of Eeloo from the relay satellite. Pretty varied terrain down there on the surface. Once I get my orbit period down to about 3 days, I was able to bring it back up to 6 days so that they're on reasonably opposite sides of Eeloo when they're finished. Just like that. You know what? Close enough. We have the relays pointing straight at Kerbin just for aesthetics, doesn't really matter. But hey, it does look cool. Anyway, here's Eeloo's really fast rotation, and we found an anomaly near the equator already. It's probably the random monolith, there's nothing else that I could find out here. But we were able to get a pretty decent high altitude scan. There we go. I did try to find it up close, but I really couldn't. But hey, this being the last stock world, we finally got some science flavor texts that were specific to that. Hello Eeloo. Hopefully we'll make you a little less lonely out here. At least this Eeloo does have some companions of Celeste and Tam. Once again, we're not going to land this time, because I don't have any small docking ports on this craft except attached to the heat shield, so we're going to do a couple of low passes of Eeloo, see if we can't get a better position on that anomaly there. but we weren't very successful. Oh well, that's okay. We'll get some nice overhead shots of the place. Nothing strange at the North Pole, fortunately. We'll find out when we actually land. But this is just the setup here. We'll get some low space science as well. Bob here checking things out. Come on, Bob. There we go. This is going to be a really short episode. I'll be able to resume production in about a couple of weeks from now, I think. Then we'll go out to Celeste and Tam properly. There we go. Hello, Eeloo. You might not be so lonely after all. We got us out here, and with that warp drive, might be able to pay several visits in the future. But I'm going to go for a polar orbit above Celeste for now, and then we'll visit Celeste in the next episode. Okay. Get out there and get out there. Hey, no problem. We got Delta V for weeks. We'll check out Celeste in the next episode. Until then, I'm not Manly. Fly safe.